Alrighty, we are live. Let's just give a moment or two to let the notifications go back out. And here we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is A Day with Mike and Kyla on the Purple Code. We are broadcasting live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Let's get this nonsense out of the way. The official word is that the original Facebook page is probably lost and gone forever. So if you could, please resubscribe and like to the Purple Code backup page that we are currently broadcasting on. And please do like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. We're going to try to grow the YouTube numbers here as well. Kyla, how are you this evening before we get started here real quick?
Hey, I'm great. We're 5-1, so feeling good. How about you, Justin?
Not too bad. You know, it's here over in my part of the world, it's 6:25 and it's pitch black. But that's what happens in the fall time, which means you're in the middle of football season there. Well, before we get started, and again, this is going to be a short one here because we still got Rap and Dave coming up here tonight, so their show will go off as usual. Again, we had some scheduling conflicts yesterday, so that's kind of why Kyle and I are going tonight. Mike, unfortunately, a little bit under the weather, so he'll rejoin us next week along with our special guest, Nicole. But as always, to get started, we got to give some thanks to Rinaldi's Pizza and Pasta, and they are located on Wood Lane Drive, right off the intersection of I-494 and Valley Creek Road. The pizza's outstanding, wings, cheese bread, the whole shebang. Give them a shout out. Mention the Purple Code or TPC, and they will hook you up with a family discount. Also sponsored today by Nautical Bowls. They're also located in Woodbury, and they're on Hudson Place, and that's off the intersection of I-94 and Woodbury Street. So, as you mentioned, Kyla, 5-1 going into the bye week. I don't think any of us would have turned that down at the beginning of the season or in the offseason to say, hey, going into the bye, we're going to be 5-1. We would have defeated the Green Bay Packers. And, oh, by the way, they would have been at best mediocre. Your thoughts in general, and then we'll talk about the Miami game here after that here. What are your thoughts on the season in general thus far?
I'm happy that it's bye week. I mean, it's a bit early, but I feel like, we've got some hard games ahead of us. So I'm kind of happy that they're going to get this week to kind of figure things out because, as happy as I am that we're 5-1, there's definitely room for improvement. I think we all can agree, but whether or not we've played our best or not, which we haven't, we've only lost one game and we have the second best. Well, I guess the Giants are also 5-1, but we're one of two 5-1 teams in the NFL or in the NFC behind Philly. Like, that's great. Yeah. How about you?
Well, I'll say this. I will stand by the fact that I said I don't know if it's a good idea to try to continue to just keep running it back and, delay the inevitable of, having to take a couple of steps back and maybe get into a rebuild. But, yeah, I did not see this type of record when we first started predicting the schedule. Obviously happy that our only loss is outside of the division. So in addition to beating Green Bay, we've also beaten Detroit and Chicago. Now all three of them were at home, so we got to keep that in mind here too. But much better to be 5-1 and not playing your best than be playing your best and being 2-4.
Yeah,
that's been said quite a bit, almost ad nauseum, as to, well, it's better to be playing the best you can or not as good. Let me try that again. Better to not be playing your best and still have a pretty daggone good record and be thought of as, a top, 8 to 10 team in the NFL, probably definitely top 2 or 3 in the conference, than the other way around. I will say this, I don't think that the stink was all Mike Zimmer, but I will say that where I will give Kevin O'Connell credit is he is finding a way to find multiple ways to win a game. Mike Zimmer was always so focused defensively, and he didn't care about offense or special teams that, Kevin O'Connell, and I said this in the postgame show, this team is picking itself up in different areas when needed. There are games where the offense is the key to the victory. There are games where the defense is the key, and sometimes the special teams. Now, the offense still has a lot of room to improve, and they are supposedly where the strength of this team is. And I would rather have that be the case, where the strength of your team, supposedly being the offense, is the one that has the most area of improvement that could be done, because that just makes your team that much better. So let's circle back to Sunday's game. I know we're a day later than we normally are, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm going to start offensively. We started defensively in the postgame show. Offensively, I was very, very disappointed with the way that game went. Now, I know Miami, it's a tough place to play and in the heat and all that other nonsense that's been spewed out over here, but they had 15 total drives. Now, let's take out one where they just kneeled down at the end, so that leaves 14, obviously. You had 3 touchdown drives and you had 1 field goal drive. The other drives, ladies and gentlemen, 10 3 and outs. That cannot continue. You're not going to be able to keep playing with fire like that. You're not going to be able to get away with that against better teams. And by the way, that field goal drive technically was a 3 and out, but it doesn't go down in the stats that way because your defense got a turnover and put you in field goal range. You kicked a field goal. So on 11 of their 14 meaningful drives, they had 3 plays and either punted or kicked a field goal here. Kyla, the offense, what are we going to do here and how are we going to make this better?
I mean, I'll give Miami credit. They definitely have a monster defense. It was a bad game for the O-line. Ingram looked like he was getting toyed out there. So I got to give Miami respect. But however, you're right. If we're going to be, we've got some tough games. We've got Buffalo coming up. Like, we're going to have to do much better than that. But then again, like, I don't know, they were playing in 120-degree heat, which sounds like I don't think I've ever been in heat like that. So it sounds just awful. But I don't know. It seems like the offense has been able to, when they've needed to, it's like, okay, we have to go score. They will go score. And they've done that. But it's annoying to see, how this offense is and them to take like several or like multiple quarters off in a game, and it's just, we're not going to keep squeaking out wins. You've said in previous weeks, like, the defense is what it is, but we've got to get our offense to be rolling all games so we can have a chance against some of these better teams.
No, I agree. And I'll say this defensively. When I say they are what they are, it's the talent is what it is. The cavalry's not coming from that perspective. But I will say in this Miami game, they did finally dial up some pressure. Now, again, I'll reiterate that who have we played quarterback-wise the last few weeks? Okay, we played a third-string guy and then a backup this past Sunday. We're talking about guys like Andy Dalton and Justin Fields. And who am I forgetting? Jared Goff. Okay, that's not going to work against, I don't know, Dak Prescott maybe, or even if it is Cooper Rush. We saw how that went last year. Definitely a Josh Allen. So they're going to need to tighten things up as much as they can defensively and play a little bit more game plan wise from there. But from the offense, I've never understood this. And this is not just about the quarterback, because every aspect of the offense was not clicking very well. The quarterback wasn't playing well. The offensive line was not playing well. The receivers were not getting separation. I did have a chance to take back a look at some overhead cam shots of a lot of the plays where the wide receivers, for all as ballyhooed as they have been, there were many times where it wasn't Kirk getting sacked because he hang on to the ball too long. It was because he had absolutely nobody to throw to there. So yeah. I don't know if it's the scheme. I don't know if they're not all on the same page. But what I have said was, okay, you get up into the bye week to be able to use the honeymoon excuse of this is a new system. That statute of limitations has officially expired. During this bye week period, they're going to need to focus on some things and figure out how. Again, do I expect them to score touchdowns on every single drive? Absolutely not. But I also don't expect you to have 15 drives in a game and have 3 meaningful drives. Okay, that's just, there's got to be somewhere in the middle with that. But to your point, the offense has found a way, either out of desperation or once in a while things click, of being able to come up with enough plays to win a game when necessary. We talk about the come from behind victories in Detroit and to a certain extent Chicago and London with the Saints as well. They had 2 good drives. That deep pass to Jefferson on that wheel route, outstanding execution and an outstanding throw by Kirk Cousins. But where was that for the rest of the game? Yes, we had a 2-play drive after the turnover. Great play by Harrison Smith and company to get that back for the Dalvin Cook run. But this feast and famine stuff is not going to be able to be a sustainable recipe for success. Nobody's upset that they're 5-1, but it's okay to point out that what they're doing, frankly, isn't sustainable. All right, so we started talking here. Hey, Mike, thanks for joining us, and I hope you feel better soon. We're looking forward to our conversation on next Monday here. I have no idea what in the world we're going to do with that 53rd man Rogers was. Signing Ndamukong Suh. No, I'm kidding. That's a running joke, Mike. But all kidding aside here, I honestly don't know. I think right now, I will say this, over the next 7 days, between now and probably next Monday or Tuesday, I would not be surprised if the Vikings actually made a trade. Kwesi has kind of been wheeling and dealing, and if he sees an opportunity to improve this team, I don't see them trading away players. Like this nonsense about trading Alexander Madison officially is dead, but let's just not bring it up ever again. I could see them bringing in a player, but the fact that they don't have all that much salary cap room to make some deals from that perspective. I'm not going to put it at any greater than 25%, but I could see that happening there. Yes, funny stuff there. Let's trade for Aaron Rodgers. Too evil. First off, thanks for joining us. Too evil to hope. I don't foresee that happening.
Yeah.
Kyla, what do you think? Should we just trade Cousins for Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers first round pick next year, or would you do that, or what do you think?
No, I'm sorry. I mean,
Kevin O'Connell's a quarterback whisperer. He would solve all of Rodgers' problems, wouldn't he? Yeah. Right.
I will not put Rodgers out. Like, he's not had a good season, but like, I've doubted him before, and then he comes back to bite us in the ass. So like, I hope he's washed. I hope he's done, but I'll believe it when I see it, for several more weeks.
All righty. Do want to remind people again that this is the Tuesday night time slot that we have invaded, but yes, Rap and Dave will be on at 9:00 this evening here. So keep it tuned here and come back to them and enjoy their show. This portion of the show, and once in a while, I'm just going to throw these up there. I'm not going to read the addresses and the reason line, but again, this portion is brought to you by Rinaldi's Pizza and Pasta in Woodbury there. So thanks again for their help. All right, Too Evil. Let's see what else we got going on. In all seriousness, I love to see the Vikings pursue Lamar. Lamar Jackson. There was a time that I definitely would have been all aboard pursuing Lamar Jackson, but to me, if I'm going to go down the road of, I don't know that I want an expensive quarterback that has a ceiling. I don't know that Lamar really changes. I mean, would I take Lamar over Cousins? Probably, but the Vikings ain't going down that road. And if they do, I'll eat my hat, so to speak, or I'll leave town. I'll move from Rochester to the town next to Rochester. But all jokes aside, I'd love to see it. It would be interesting. I just don't see it happening. Too evil here. But let's see what else here. So circling back, let's talk about the special teams this past weekend. After having an abysmal week the week before, do we have an all-pro Hall of Fame punter, or is it just one of those deals where, that was about the best punt you've ever seen in your life?
The price is right, baby. That was insane. I think my jaw dropped when I watched that. I was like, oh my God, what a punt. He is amazing. I know he had a bad game last week, but think about how many times we had to punt yesterday.
I believe 10. I believe we talked about that a moment ago. Yeah, yes, 10 times, as a matter of fact.
Well, we've seen in previous years when we've had bad special teams, and part of special teams has been we've got, the other kicker on our team who I'm sure we'll get to, but Brian Wright's been it. Wasn't he given the game ball too by
yes. I don't know how often a punter gets the game ball.
Well, I was going to say, if there's any game, then it's got to be yesterday with the nicest punt I've ever seen, and the amount of times he had to be out there punting. So good for him.
Well, that does go back to what I was saying a moment ago about how Wright just absolutely flipped the field on that, to say the least. I thought, first off, it was credit to Cousins for getting that ball out and not taking a safety in the first place. But having said all of that, I thought, okay, the way the defense played in the first couple of drives and the way the offense was going there, they could have been in some serious trouble without that thing. All right, Mike, I'll throw it up here. Here you go. Kwesi, Matt Daniels, yeah, you know what? I was not all that convinced that it was the right move to be changing up punters and holders in the offseason when they did, but so far that move has paid off. Too Evil makes a very good point. In fact, we were just going to what's going to bring us the time to start worrying about Greg Joseph. I say this. I understand 50-yarders aren't what they used to be, where you do have kickers making them at a fairly regular basis, but at some point you have to make sure that you can't just keep sending a guy out there to try for trying's sake anymore. To me, if they have the opportunity to kick a 54-yard field goal or go for it on 4th and 3, I'm of the belief that at this point you just start going for it more often here, because putting aside the wonderful nightmares that this organization and this fan base has had to suffer through kicker-wise, I don't know what's going on with it. Last year it was, Mike Zimmer's yelling at him too much, and, it's in his head or whatever. What is wrong with Greg Joseph? What are we going to do here, Kyla? Because I just don't see an answer with this guy right now.
I don't not trust him, but I definitely don't trust him like I was. But, yeah, I agree with you. I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. I don't understand why, in some scenarios they can't, they don't want to go for it on 4th and 3 or 4th and 4, but it's a 50-yard field goal. The way he's been, punt it, trust your defense, hold the other team's offense to a 3-and-out, put them deep. I don't know. There's other options to me. There's ways to work around it, but as far as replacing him, like I don't think that's really an option either. So
I will say this. I'm getting more to the point where, again, I don't trust this defense the way I would if it was a Mike Zimmer-led defense back in 2015, circa 2017. But at the same point in time, I'm getting to the point where I'm now willing to consider it. Pin them deep. You've got right. I'm sorry. I'm just concerned that there is going to come a point in time, whether it's late in the season or in the playoffs, where it's a missed extra point or a missed, 49-yard field goal for some reason. And I think that is the one Achilles heel to the Viking special teams at this point here. But having said that, let's take a look and see what we all got here for comment. Oh, Mike's full of jokes. Amazing how under the weather you are, Mike, yet you still got all kinds of jokes. Can Ryan Lundell come back? Well, I would say that he would probably be good from 40 on in, but then again, I don't know that that's any different than what we got here right now. But Two Evil has a very good point. Is there a tight end the Vikings go after? I'm not impressed with their support. What didn't you like about that touchdown catch, Two Evil? No. I don't know that there is one available. I'm not interested in guys that are over the hill like Jimmy Graham as an example, and I'm not interested in trading any kind of draft capital that's above a 6th-round pick for a tight end. We tried that last year and we lost out on a 4th. I don't know, Kyla, do you have any thoughts on? I mean, again, would I trade 2 1st-round picks for Travis Kelce for this team for this year just to go all in? Sure, I would. I doubt Kansas City would, but I just don't see anything out. I mean, Two Evil, if you've got any suggestions, let me know. But I just don't see anybody out there that would either be that much of an upgrade over Irv Smith or wouldn't cost you an arm and a leg capital-wise. Let's see. Do we have anybody else in here? No. All right, so I'll read it now here. This portion is sponsored by Nautical Bowls, again, on Hudson Place in Woodbury for some healthy choices. Get them there. Let's see. How about that? Maybe. Not entirely sure. I don't think so. But you could be right. I'll say this. Moving on. We've got the bye week coming up here, so chance to get rested here. And I will say this, Lady Luck has been on our side from an injury standpoint as well. So what do you think are the two key points, one offensively, one defensively, that the Vikings need to show up during their bye week here as they get healthy here? Because again, or to try to stay healthy, because again, I'm grateful that the Vikings have had very few names on the injury report each week, but at some point that luck is going to seem to run out. So during this bye week, what's the one key you have on each side of the ball, Kyla, to work forward on?
I really see, for me, the key is the same. It's just play a complete game. It just astonishes me how, like, if the offense is clicking, the defense isn't clicking, and then if the offense, slows down, it just feels like, even when one side's had a good game or a good quarter, the other hasn't. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just the fact that we take quarters off during the game, like both sides of the ball, especially offensively, though, because they don't think that should happen. They've just got to figure that out. Like, they're not going to get away with beating good teams, taking half the game off. So, like, imagine going against, like, a defense like Dallas or a team like Buffalo, down a couple of touchdowns with 10 minutes left. Yeah. Like, good luck with that. No. So they've got to figure it out.
And I'll say this. They are playing complementary football to the standpoint of they are doing enough to win close games against mediocre to bad teams, which is all well and good, but that's not going to work against the better teams. You've got to play, football cliche after football cliche. You got to play 4 quarters of defense and 4 quarters of, okay, that's all well and good. But to me, I think the sustainability of getting turnovers, it probably not at that particular level, but that isn't to say that can't still continue. To me, the biggest key is you need to be a lot more consistent offensively. And I know that Dalvin Cook is not going to be the Dalvin Cook under the Mike Zimmer. That's just who Kevin O'Connell is. He wants to pass the ball more, which is what we all wanted. That's all well and good. Offensive line has had some weeks where they've looked outstanding and they have looked mediocre at times as well. But to me, they've got to get on the same page. They have to figure out, okay, why is it that for 2 or 3 drives a game, we look like we can't be stopped, and for 2 or 3 or 7 or 8 drives a game, they look like they haven't played football together anymore. So I generally, I'm going to limit this to just a handful. We did an entire show of midseason awards last year, but give me your 1 or 2 biggest surprises thus far this year and where you see this being able to continue moving forward for the rest of the season before we take a look at some of the upcoming games, Kyla.
Like player surprises?
Yeah, who has surprised you the most, whether it be an existing player that has come back like a Danielle Hunter or a free agent signing? Who's your biggest surprise?
I would say I'll give him props because I was hating on him, even though I thought he looked bad yesterday. But for most this season. I thought Garrett Bradbury is like impressed me. Like I was super done with him. I mean, he still I feel like has a lot to prove if we want to bring him back last year, but I'll say overall, um, I've been pretty happy with them in comparison. So I'll give him a shout out there. He's been my most surprising person.
I will say this: I am not surprised that Zadarius Smith has had moments. I'm surprised that he's had this many of them, and hopefully Danielle Hunter, his running mate, can join him. And I'm not saying that Danielle Hunter has been completely invisible, but he hasn't been the Danielle Hunter of old. And I get it. There's different schemes and everything else. But if we can get them both on the same page where we see both of them as to what they are, I think that makes this defense so much better. And it gets back to then not needing your offense to completely carry you. But to me, I will say my biggest surprise this year, and it's not necessarily in the best way, but I'm going to say Adam Thielen. And I don't know if it's opportunity. I don't know if it's the scheme that's trying to, instead of it being a 1A, 1B, going to more balls going to Justin Jefferson there. But to me, I need to see a little bit more out of him, just a touch more. I'm not looking for him to be a 1,200-yard receiver with 13 touchdowns. That would be great to have two receivers of that caliber at this particular point in time. But to me, I want to see a little bit more out of Adam Thielen. But before I go any further, I have to say hello to our good friend, Purple Pocket Podcast himself, Rap, who will be on in about a half an hour with Dave. If you haven't seen Rap and Dave's show from yesterday, go check it out after our show is over and after their show tonight is over. They get a very in-depth breakdown because both he and Dave were at the game, and a little bit of the explanation that I saw of why, there was not a whole lot of opportunities for the wide receivers breaking open under. So bottom line is go give Rap some love, subscribe to his page, and check out his show from yesterday. Let's see here. All right, Rap, why don't you think Kirk shows up for all quarters? Well, here's the deal. This is an inside joke between Two Evil and Rap because, Rap is slightly less of a Kirk Cousins fan than I am. I'm not going to say he's a Kirk Cousins hater by any stretch of the imagination, but he's more like me, which is to say that there have been times where, Kirk might have been able to do more. But like me, he will absolutely acknowledge that, this year he has done absolutely everything that he could have when the game was on the line. Having said that, all right, you two guys can have your little fun chatting, at about 9:15 Eastern time. You guys can do all that chat and stuff at Rap Show there. So I'm going to say this. I know it's a couple weeks off, and we're not going to do predictions anymore, but what is your outlook for me for the next, let's just say, handful of games here? For me, you've got to win your next two games. And I know Kyler Murray can be a bit of a headache to defense because he is a mobile quarterback and he's a touch further along than Justin Fields. But to me, you've got to win your next two games, get to 7-1 before that gauntlet against Buffalo, Dallas, and New England there. Kyla, your thoughts on what this team needs to do to be able to come out of the bye week hot, to make sure they get those two games to be able to at least be competitive in games against those other three that I mentioned there?
I don't know. I would just say I feel like these teams do it almost annually. They see a game they think they can win, and it's like one of those trap games. But I definitely I agree with you. They have to win these two games because they have so many teams that are way more difficult, and then some other teams that I didn't before the season think were difficult, but now are looking like a pretty good team, and it's going to be no easy win. Kyler doesn't scare me. I don't think he's played well this year. Washington's one of the worst teams in the league. Just for them, come out of bye week, take care of business against Arizona, and then the next week, take care of business against Washington. Don't be looking all the way ahead to Buffalo or anything like that. They haven't proven to be good enough to be overlooking anyone. We've been very close to losing, quite most of our games so far. So that's all I want. Just take it one game at a time and go from there.
I'm going to say this. I revel in seeing both New York teams beat our lovely neighbors to the east.
Yes.
I do. Having said that, I'm no longer convinced that it's a matter of that the Packers are bad, is maybe those teams are better than what we thought they were, to quote the late, great Denny Green. Having said all that, that is why I say you've got to get your next two so that you can bank on someone. Because you're right. The Vikings will put up a clunker at some point in time and lose a game that they really had no business losing, whether it's the impressions that we had of the team they're playing going into the season or as they are when they played them. That's just who the Vikings are. They're going to find a way, like in 2018 where they lost to Buffalo, and not only lost to them, but got spanked by them at home. But I'm going to say this. This division right now is no longer a, hey, let's hope we can be competitive with Green Bay. This is now our division to lose. And this is why I say you've got to get those next two games so that you've built in a cushion here. Yes. I'm not going to say I was totally surprised that the Giants on a neutral site pulled out a game against Green Bay. I am utterly shocked that the Jets went into Lambeau and just ran roughshod over those guys.
The Jets who the Jets. Like, that's probably one of the last teams I would expect. Like, they almost never lose at Lambeau. So for the New York Jets to do that, like, wow, that's impressive stuff.
Their defense is no joke, and their special teams is no joke. Like I said, we're not going to be able to. Like I said, I know that's a little ways off coming up at the end of November and December times that we're going to be playing the New York teams. But it was just so delicious to see Aaron Rodgers' pouting face, and we need to simplify things. Well, let's see, Aaron. I'm pretty sure you've got a decent coach that wants to run more than you are. So if there's anything that needs to be simplified, it might have to do with the fact that you're changing the plays all the time. But
like, just a quick thing about that. Like, I wanted to ask some Packer fans that, like, because it looks like to me that there's such a discommunication there, but like, I feel like, is LaFleur actually allowed to coach, or is he not a good coach? Because it seems like, like, was it last week when they could have, ran it? They have perfectly capable backs to try and get the first down. They threw it twice. That's like me thinking like Rodgers is calling the shots over there. So
he most definitely is. I mean,
yeah, you get what you get then, buddy.
He's not gonna, what's he going to say to him? Absolutely nothing. I'll say this.
Exactly.
If you have Aaron Jones and you give him and he only gets 9 rushes, that's on the quarterback changing plays. There's no way that any sane head coach with a running back like that to try to keep yourself balanced would only call 9 rushing plays. So, well, for right now, we're just going to wrap this up here. I said we'd only go to the bottom of the hour because, like I said, we are clumping a little bit on Rap and Dave's time. And again, to reiterate, they will be on in their normal time slot at 9:15 Eastern time. So I'm here today. So keep the notifications on from the Purple Code on the YouTube as well as the Facebook and Twitter pages. I'm just going to reemphasize that the original Facebook page is probably gone and lost forever. So please resubscribe to the new Facebook page. That's called the Purple Code backup page. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I'm just going to leave it with this. We are going to be back on our normal time slot next Monday for a day with Mike and Kyla. Hopefully Mike is still not feeling under the weather. Tell our viewers a little bit about our special guest here, Kyla. You and Mike set this up there, but Nicole was going to be joining. Who was it that's joining us here next week? I'm sorry.
It's at Vikings WTF. And we have a lot in common. We're both, well, as per her bio, but I can relate to it. Just 2 Canadian girls crying over the Minnesota Vikings. And she's from Vancouver as well. So I haven't actually spoken to her about it, but I'm really excited. It's going to be a fun time, I think.
All right. So, again, keep it tuned to the Purple Code. We will still have content pretty much every day here during the bye week as well. And, again, come back at about 9:15 for Dave and Rap. I do want to thank Rinaldi's Pizza and Pasta in Woodbury as well as Nautical Bulls in Woodbury for sponsoring us. Thank you kindly again, everybody. The Vikings are 5-1 in the bye week. Nobody would have expected this. And while they do have still room for improvement, let's just enjoy this ride because I don't think very many people, even the homers of all homers, didn't see this one coming here. So thanks again for joining us. You have a great rest of your day, and we will see you next week. Vikings are on bye. We'll just go ahead and cheer on the Washington Commanders here this Sunday. Thanks again. And reminder, almost forgot the outro, but I could hear Mike sitting on my shoulder. Motto on the day with Mike and Kyla is we just want to see the Vikings win one Super Bowl just once before we die. Thank you kindly and have a great evening. Skol Vikes.